Oh, well, thanks for joining us anyway. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Nice
Of
to be here.
Obviously, people will know you mainly from Gogglebox, and we'll get to that later. But would you say your main passion is music?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, I think you're correct in saying that.
Yeah. So is
Yeah.
that is like from a very young age?
I, Certainly, I mean, listening to music, and uh, that's been with us, not just me, the whole family for a long time. I remember, I think it was my uncle that really got us onto pop music,
Right.
The top 40. Uh, and since then, it's just, we were never really encouraged to take up musical instruments or learn music. So that was something that developed later on. But I was always fascinated by like how these sounds being made, and how is music put together, and that kind of stuff.
So what were some of the first artists that you got into?
It's
Oh, well,
so
thanks for joining us anyway. I really appreciate your time.
Probably started listening to chart music when I was at secondary
Obviously,
school.
people will know
So
you
this would have been
mainly
about
from Gogglebox, and
1989,
we'll get to that
1990.
later. But
And
would you say
at
your
the
main
time,
passion
you
is
had
music?
artists like I would say so, yeah, Janet
I think
Jackson. Correct in saying that.
Yeah. So is that like from a
U2,
very young
obviously,
age?
U2 is a big influence on
Yeah.
on certainly. I mean, music, listening
So
to
was it
music,
U2 one of
and
the bands that got you into guitar specifically?
definitely. That's been with us. Yeah, yeah.
With these special sound effects?
Yeah, I mean, because prior to that, guitar-driven rock had a very characteristic sound, that crunchy distortion. But what he was doing with guitars was like, sometimes you listen and you think, is this coming from a guitar or is this coming from something else?
Lots of like reverb and delay and effects and stuff like that. It's like his signature sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you hear it and you know it's him. Thanks for joining us anyway. I really appreciate your time.
Instantly, that's the age.
So did you have to pester your parents to get your first guitar then?
Well, I mean, not really. There always, in my family, there always seemed to be a musical instrument left behind or donated by somebody. I think my uncle had a go at playing the guitar, and he must have left it there. And I just picked it up and started strumming it. And my sister, incidentally, had the first electric guitar, which I think she tried playing for a bit and then just left it. So I picked it up. I mean, even now, I would say that the guitar isn't I do like playing it, but it's usually more for generating ideas. I've never sat down and properly learned like how to play the thing. I mean, I know the basic chords and transpositions and all that, but it's never really been to me like an instrument like that's the instrument that I want to grow up with and learn. It's just another way of making sounds, really.
Yeah. So I mean, you get into electric guitar, was that a big, because you play acoustic guitar before that, so when you got to electric it was a bit of a, you were like, oh wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, acoustic guitar, to be honest, Mark, when I was growing up, we were just experimenting with different instruments. But when we were at college, my brother and I, Raza, we kind of formed like a half-assed band where I just picked up the bass guitar and started just plucking that.
Right.
It's never really been like a case of it went from this guitar to this guitar to this guitar. It was like a kind of like skewed journey towards what I'm eventually using now. But again, this is bequeathed by my sister.
Right.
50% of the things I've got are cast offs on my sister's audio that I've just taken and just used really more just to give me ideas as to what to play and
different ways of songwriting as well, I guess.
That's right, yeah. Because I think with a guitar, it's quite easy to just sit there and just put together something much easier that I find than with a synthesizer or a piano.
Yeah, because that is more. Would you say you're more of sort of a piano or a keyboard synthesizer kind of player than a guitar player?
I would say largely it's synthesizers. I mean, especially now, if you listen to some of the stuff that I'm doing now, it's really music software.
Yes, yeah, electronic stuff.
Electronic stuff, yeah. And the guitar is just I use that for bridges and fills, and sometimes I listen to something and I think that would benefit.
I think they always do meld together synths and guitars, and since they were invented, they've always worked well together.
That's right,
yeah.
I see a few in the background there.
Yeah, I've got a few. Yeah. Not that I've been playing much recently, but they're there. How many guitars have you got?
Well, there's this one, the Gibson Les Paul copy, and then there's a really cheap one upstairs that I've retuned that just so I could play Dire Straits' Romeo and Juliet, but I've never retuned it back to the original.
Oh well, you've got to have a backup somewhere, haven't you?
That's right. Yeah.
So when did you start doing the writing and recording music then?
I would say that started in earnest about 3 years ago when I bought a Logic Pro. Logic Pro.
How difficult was that a learning curve? Would you find Logic easy or difficult?
Well, prior to that, I'd used DAW's. I mean, it was never really to compose anything. It was just, let's put these loops together. You know, the loops that come with these programs. And I mean, even then, you can make something pretty decent just by using the stock loops that come with these.
Yeah, it's quite surprising.
Yeah, but really, I thought, well, if I'm doing this, I want to use this like as a musical instrument.
Yeah.
Start actually composing and adding notes and really getting a feel for how these things work and how tracks are put together. So with Logic, I actually bought it, and then I went through the tutorials on the basics,
of which there is a lot.
Obviously on YouTube, there is a staggering amount of instructional videos.
It's almost like you've got too many options. You get it. You're like, where do I start?
Yeah. So I mean, some are better than others. Some I like the ones where they not like. To give you an example, I'm trying to learn a bit of mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
And some will just say, "Oh, do this to the EQ or add this compression," but they don't explain to you why you do that and what that actually does to the sounds. Like the ones where they explain the science, a bit of the science behind what's going on.
Because obviously you can use those techniques to make big differences or little differences, and differences that the listener probably won't even notice.
Yes.
But they're still very important. But when you get to mixing and mastering, that's more after you've written the song, what can I do to make it sound bigger or better or different?
I mean, I had absolutely no idea prior to this what they actually meant. I thought that the process that they term mastering, I thought that was mixing, and I thought mixing was done whilst you're writing.
No, it doesn't. It's not like widely explained what all that is, unless you actually have to just dive headfirst into it and figure it out. And I can imagine for a lot of people, it is overwhelming because you're like, especially with like Logic or any of the other DAWs, there's so many things. You probably only need about 20% of them.
Yeah. I mean, there's the functionality of these things is they include so much in there, and you're thinking, well, presumably this is for a particular style of music. I'm never going to use that because I don't produce that particular style of music.
Yeah.
But I think with synthesizer-based things, a lot of them come with their own compressors and EQs and filters. So you have to be careful when you're layering these things together, not to add too much production to it, because some of these sounds might have already been manipulated in some way.
So sometimes you want to keep the sound a bit more raw as well. You don't want it too polished.
No, certainly not. No.
Yeah. So how many songs would you say you've written then?
That's a good question. In terms of pieces that from start to finish, I'd say there's close to about 60, 70.
Right.
Quality-wise, I'd say probably about 4 or 5.
It's a matter of opinion.
It's a matter of opinion, exactly.
But if you just keep doing stuff and just putting it out there.
I try to, yeah. More now. If you asked me this question about 2 years ago, I'd say I do basic, make the music and just put it out there on SoundCloud. Now I'm a bit more discerning as to what should be going out, and like I said, because I'm learning the mixing and mastering.
Yeah.
But I mean, I listen back to the early stuff and I'm thinking, well, it's not that rough. It's still passable as a piece of piece of.
You could always remix and remaster stuff now.
Well,
but yeah, like I said, there's so much you can do. So would you write, or have you written like an EP or an album or a group of work and put it together, or do you just do per track?
Per track at the moment, but this time last year I did put an EP out. Well, I say put it out. I released it for a bit of time, and then I withdrew it. But
Right.
it's a collection of 5 songs. They were mainly more dancey in
Right.
in nature.
I listened to some of your electronic stuff, the dancey stuff. It's really good, really good.
Oh, thank you very much.
Have you got any of it on Spotify?
Not at the moment, but I've got a release date for 2 songs. Well, 1 song on the I have to get the dates right. 21st of August through a record company.
All right.
So that'll be released on all platforms.
Because Spotify is a big player these days in all the
it is, yes,
stuff.
yeah.
Especially, I find electronic music does quite often get picked up and put on a lot of these like playlists because it's especially a lot of instrumental stuff that doesn't have like lyrics and words. You can get a lot of streams from that.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Very because obviously pubs and clubs love playing music, and it's Spotify's so easy if they've got the license to play it, and they can just play. Yeah. If one of your songs ends up on one of those playlists, you can get thousands of plays.
Right. Okay.
I noticed you use SoundCloud initially, don't you?
Yeah. At the moment, it's just SoundCloud because I'm not entirely comfortable with what in terms of quality at the moment,
right?
Because I think that it needs to be passed on to somebody else to do that.
So you feel like you could maybe have you been in an actual studio before? Had any experience in a studio?
Yes, but never like for live recording. It's always the post production.
Because at some point you should try that if you're doing more instrumental stuff. Because there's so much that's like a learning curve. Then it's something that I don't know about you. Have you always wanted to do like a proper song or an album in a studio?
Yes, yeah. I mean, that would be a dream of mine to actually put an album out there of completed, radio play ready songs. Really. Would
you prefer to do it alone, or would you rather collaborate with other people?
Well, I mean, if there is somebody whose sound, whose vision tallies with mine, then I'd love to. I mean, one thing I'd love for somebody to contribute to my songs is some kind of vocal. I mean, it doesn't have to be an entire lyrical arrangement. Just some kind of backing vocal or a sample vocal, or even I say that the guitar parts that I play, they usually just give an idea of how the guitar should sound on the track, but I'd love for somebody to be able to re-record certain guitar parts.
Yeah. Because I mean, you can go on. Go on.
At the moment, I'm just in a state of experimenting with my sound, learning the craft.
Right.
It's fantastic that somebody's taken a song of mine and feel it's ready to be released. So that's a positive step.
A good thing about doing a specific EP or an album is you hone your sound for that specific recording, that group of songs. Then you put it out and it's done. So then you have a frame of reference to not repeat yourself or not sound like that again.
Yes.
So I think it's good to start on that journey because once you've got a back catalogue, you have a frame of reference to move around it and past it and over it, sort of thing.
Right, that's interesting. Okay.
Because if you just, once it might help you actually find your sound as well. If you set yourself a target of next year, I'm going to put an EP of 4 or 5 songs out. Like if you announce that, put that out. So you've put pressure on yourself. You've set yourself a deadline now. So it might force you to be creative and get it done.
I mean, that's a really interesting way of looking at it. Just to set yourself that target, which is what I kind of did when I did release the EP. Partly released the EP last year. It was just do something, just get something out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
No, it sounds perfectly polished. It's just the ideas. You've got the ideas there to put together 5 songs that follow a kind of theme.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've still got that. It's in its mastered form. So hopefully, at some point, I will be able to re-release all those songs. Because I think the first time around, there were hardly any listens. But
it's a similar concept because even just putting songs out, you've got to start somewhere. You can't really improve what you never put out. You don't want to have loads of demos that. Oh well, thanks for joining us anyway. I really appreciate you getting my time.
No, you're welcome. It's just that I'm amassing too much unfinished demo-ish kind of work.
Yeah, you might get a bit overwhelmed by all that, and
get bogged down. Which is why I like doing the covers, because to me a cover is a beginning and an end. I've done the cover. I've just put it out there.
Yeah. Well, it helps you learn. I think it still helps you learn a lot as well doing covers.
It's incredible. Following somebody else's thought process as to how a song is put together really helps you with how how you feel your song should be put together in.
Yeah, or it makes you go, how on earth did they come up with this?
And I don't know if you're the same, Mark, but it becomes quite an obsession when you try and pinpoint a particular sound and think, how was this done? What's going on here? Is it one instrument? Are there more than one instrument? What's being done?
It's particularly the difference between how do they do it live and how they do it on a record as well. Because I often found in the studio, you're quite often presented with lots of options of what you could do, but then you've also got to think, but we've got to do this live, so let's not get too carried away. Let's not add too much, because if we can't do it live, then there'll be a bit of a disconnect. But no, so what have you got? Have you put some stuff out just recently then, or?
Yeah, so like I said, 21st of August is the release date for a single of mine. It's called A Simple Mind. So it's been released through a company called Ultra Wave Records, which is a Chesterfield-based record label.
Right.
So a lad from Chesterfield and somebody else, I think a Dutch lad, but they've got a few artists, and through a connection through Instagram, somebody listened to one of my songs and he says, I think this label would like your kind of output.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm looking forward to that being released. The track itself is actually about 2-3 years old, but like I said, it didn't really go anywhere other than SoundCloud. So it's nice for that to be picked up, and close to the time, I'll do a bit of promoting myself, and
well, it just shows that people are listening.
Yeah, see what kinds of response it gets.
So have you found the Gogglebox thing has helped doing this at all?
I would say to some degree, yes, because it's made me realize that entertainment is something that people are crying out for.
Especially right now.
Yes, well, yeah, particularly during this time. And it's just like, I mean, my actual job background is science, so I work as a scientist.
Body is thinking about
and
being
to
an
me,
adult.
music has always been a side project.
Don't do it. Look at all this. I've got a whole
doing Gogglebox and seeing the response,
and
kind of seeing the importance from it as well. That to a degree, it is something that people find quite important to have in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, well, there are things that people wouldn't consider the norms, normal professions, but are still important, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, especially in this last 4 or 5 months, I mean, Gogglebox has been heralded as a saviour. I remember people saying, don't stop this series, just keep it going.
People would want, I think some people want 365 days a year.
We're so lucky that as an industry
but it's just been a tough time. But things like that, like you say, entertainment. But music also is a huge relief for people in the release. For the listener and for the artist.
Yes. It's kind of a scenario that really lockdown. I see a lot of comments from people saying my life before lockdown as a producer, and then my life after lockdown. It's exactly.
Yeah.
Because especially the kind of music that I make, it is just one person sitting in their living room, tinkering away and just coming up with something.
But that's what some of the biggest artists in the world are or were.
Yes.
More and again,
like Fatboy Slim.
I just came back inside.
Well, those kind of people are such an inspiration to me.
Now I'm going back out.
Fatboy Slim, The Prodigy. I mean, you're talking going
back. So we're going to take you with us.
One of the things, the covers I put on Instagram, a highlight for me was I put a cover of Adamski's Killer.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Yes, and Adamski himself liked that post, and to me, that really makes my day. It's just
brilliant.
It's incredible to think that the people that I listened to growing up are still around, still making music, but they're also commenting on what.
That's a bit of a compliment for you there.
That was a huge boost.
So who else have you covered then so far?
Everybody from Adamski, then you got Simple Minds, Eurythmics, Human League. I tend to favour the 80s kind of synth pop, but any direction. Sometimes I'll just wake up one morning and I'll think, I'd really like to cover that song, or I'll hear something on the radio. So the recent one that I'm working on is a cover of Bruno Mars' 24K Magic.
Right. How do you go about it then when you get an idea to cover something? What's the process?
Well, the first thing I do is listen to the song and get the BPM down, so I know what to set the Logic tempo to. Then I do a bit of trickery, I do a bit of cheating. I find out if anybody's doing it already. I've done it already, and I'm not saying I'm going to completely lift that video, but sometimes it'll tell you what synthesizers are used, and if that kind of information is there, it's very helpful. You advance a number of steps already. So the current example, the Bruno Mars 24K Magic is there's a website called reverb.com, and there's a chap on there who covers all the synthesizer hits of the 80s, but he also covered this one.
Right.
So he tells you what synthesizers you use and what kind of tweaking and twiddling you can do. Because sometimes if you're covering a song, especially those kind of songs, completely from scratch, you can spend hours and hours and get nowhere near that sound.
Yeah.
So it's always helpful. But as far as inspiration goes, it's simply a case of what have I heard, or I've just scrolled through my MP3 player and thought, oh, I'll pick that one this week.
Do you? Go on.
I try and play something every week, so every Wednesday I'll put out something new.
Ah, right, okay. Well, it keeps people engaged and they're waiting for what's he going to do next. Yeah, but so have you got any plans like in the near future or sort of in the next year have you got like a bucket list of things that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I say top of the list is to play live. Now I know that's a bit tricky. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate because prior to the whole lockdown, I was actually scheduled to play an open mic night at Nottingham.
Right.
And the EP I mentioned earlier, I was going to pick a few tracks from that, play those live, and then make that coincide with the re-release of that EP.
Still possible.
Still possible. I mean, I'm thinking of doing that on Instagram Live now.
Yeah, you could do that. Yeah, that's a good idea. So, were you have you done much public performance in front of people before?
Nothing.
Oh, right, okay.
The extent of my public performance is me putting a video and putting it on social media.
What about your brothers or your dad? Have you played in front of
them? No. I would say yes. We've done snippets for the TV show where they said, "Oh, can you do something on your guitar?"
Oh, yes, I do remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm completely not averse to doing that. It's just finding the right environment, the right setting. But it's a good idea, though. I think I should practice that set that I plan to do in whatever format in front of my family and girlfriend.
So it doesn't completely scare you, the thought of getting up on stage and playing in front of people?
Because I've got a special admiration for people who can do that kind of thing, and especially people who have to handle an instrument on stage. And I don't know if you find this, but playing a guitar, it's not an easy instrument to play if you're going to do something more than chords.
Yeah. In my band, we do a lot of riffs, and obviously I'm the singer, so playing riffs, and it's interesting what your brain decides that you can and can't do. Like sometimes I've struggled with a really simple riff with some words over the top. Why can't I do this? And then the next day I'll be doing something really complicated, and I can just find that I can sing over the top of it. I don't quite understand that.
Yeah.
But it's different though for you if it's going to be just you. I've never done stuff for my own. I've always been in with a band, so which gives you a little bit of more confidence because you're not always the center of attention. But with you, especially like an open mic night, it's just going to be you, and people are just going to go, do something now. So there's a lot of confidence to that.
Yeah. Again, with the electronic music, you can kind of hide behind the instruments.
That's true. Yeah.
There's a way of doing this so that you're not. I mean, for example, if I was to play one of my songs completely from scratch, there's no way that I would be able to do it. There's just too much going on. So what I've done is I've taken some of the tracks, stripped them down so that certain parts I'll play, but certain parts the computer will play.
Yeah, so almost like playing to a backing track of your own stuff.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, with like a drum machine.
I've been to a few of them, and it's interesting the various ways that people put their music out there, but still look like they're performing. Because at the bare minimum, you could have some guy or somebody just walk onto a stage, press a button, and say, "Right, But you want to get involved as well.
There's so much you can do. I mean, it is a bit of an art because also you feel like you want to put on a bit of a show as well. You don't just want to be a guy just playing some tunes.
Yeah. And some of them I've got that down brilliantly. There's a chap called Resonator. He's he does quite. He's doing quite well actually. He's a lot of his stuff is on BBC introducing new music. But he'll bring a snare drum with him, and he'll bang that alongside what he's playing. And he's got one of these. I don't know what he actually called them. It's like a grid with a series of lit buttons, and each one of them has a sample. And
okay, like triggers and stuff. Yeah. That's interesting. So so you go watch people do something similar and take inspiration from that.
Yeah, well, that was my goal for last year, just to get out there and see what's being done.
So how close did you actually come to doing that?
There was a day scheduled, April the 4th. It was meant to be to go ahead. There was a venue in Derby. Everything was good to go. I practiced my set list, and then
Boris put an end to that. Seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
It does, honestly, yeah. But I still keep practicing the set list in the vain hope that they will call me back.
I'm sure they will. How was lockdown for you initially? Then the first one when we were really locked down, was it tough?
When we were really locked down, I mean, I was still actually at work because of the nature of work that I do. It was a key worker, so I was still going into the lab and doing the test. So I would say to me, I mean, it has affected me in the fact that I can't see my family, limited as to how much I can see my girlfriend. But yeah, it's a strange feeling, and the strangest part is that it's continuing.
Yeah,
because I think people are used to saying we're going to be doing this up until this time, but that's not coming, is it? That nobody's saying right, 30th of October, all this will be finished.
There's no end in sight yet, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine when you would actually have a room full of, like, if you did a gig, when would there be a room full of people able to watch it live?
Yeah. I think, unfortunately, I think those kind of things, they'll be the last things to do.
Because they're literally non-essential.
Yeah.
It'll just be, you'll just have to start doing, like you said, just stuff live on Instagram or record some videos and just put those out.
Yeah.
Which in a way is good practice for when you do get out there.
Yes. Yeah. I think people are relishing the time that they can, this time, because they can practice more, they can hone their craft. And I don't know about you, but some of the things I've been listening to recently, they really, it's almost like the music has changed to reflect people being at home.
Well, I think we've been in this situation so long that new stuff that's coming out now will have bbeen recorded around this time.
Yes.
Well, when we first started lockdown, it was obviously stuff that was recorded pre-lockdown, but now we're getting stuff that's, I mean, I saw the advertisers were on the ball within like at least a week. I saw adverts that were mentioning the situation we were in.
Well, prior to everybody going into lockdown, the adverts already.
Yeah. So it's not musicians are obviously going to. It's a topic to write about.
Certainly, yes.
Something we've never experienced before, and I don't know if we ever will again.
No.
I've said this before on previous shows about you can't really compare the two, but we'll talk about this when we're old, like old people now talk about the war.
Exactly.
It's not as bad as the war. We have to stay at home a bit, wear a mask.
It's a societal change. I mean, you can't say it's. Yeah, I mean, you can't say it's not bombs dropping down on your house, but it is something that
affects the world, the entire world. That doesn't happen too often.
It doesn't, no. And nobody saw this coming. And even as like a scientist working with infectious diseases, we weren't sitting around the microscope thinking, come March next year.
Yeah.
It didn't happen like that.
Well, speaking of that, so you're a biomedical scientist.
That's right.
You specialize in microbiology.
Yes.
So that's the really small,
bacteria, viruses. The study of infectious diseases.
So have you had to work specifically on COVID-19 then, since this is how it kicked off?
Yes. I mean, the people who are doing my job have. The lab where I work is considered too small to be a COVID testing centre.
Right.
So we see the swabs from the community and the hospital, and we'll forward them on to larger labs who can do these tests, because they're quite sophisticated tests as well that require quite large laboratory infrastructure. But
Right.
we do see the samples, we do see the results coming back, and it is interesting to be a part of that.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
so you say your job is like your other passion.
Yeah, I'm fortunate in that I've never one of these people who sought music as a way of escaping the drudgery of their job, because my job is an interesting job, and I was more inclined to. I've learned these things as a scientist. Now, can I apply them as a musician? You know.
Well, there is a science part of playing music.
Yeah. But I do, and I would never say. I mean, obviously, if I've got a record deal for however many, how much money I take to see it,
I might hang up my white coat.
I do have to keep on learning about the subject. You know?
Yeah, because you're interested in it.
It's an interesting subject.
So yeah, you would never really want to leave it completely, but yeah, you still want to play it. But for the time being, you're not going to be able to go and play music anywhere anyway. So,
That's true.
so where did you that side of it, your career side, come into your life? Like, it's because it's a very specific thing.
Yes, yeah. I think it was just my A levels were all science based A levels, and it was just something I was always interested in, especially biology, biochemistry. And I just thumbing through the university prospectus, and I'm thinking, oh, that looks good. That looks like something worthwhile and something very hands-on. I mean, microbiology, fortunately, is one of those disciplines in pathology where you still get to work with your hands. A lot of that has become also
very practical.
Yes, yeah. A lot of for example, clinical chemistries, a lot of that's done on machines, but we still get to work with our hands and look through microscopes and things.
So you fortunate,
it was never like a case of at school I want to study typhoid and anthrax. It was never like that. It was just something that appealed to me. I think at the right time when I was looking for something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are fortunate that your job is something that you're interested in, because for a lot of people, it isn't.
It is.
So in times like this, you're able to still go and do something that is still, triggering your mind and keeping you active, and
Yes. Yeah.
and then you come home and play guitar. So, I mean, have you actually had proper guitar lessons?
No.
No?
Self-taught as much as I can be. But I mean, now the way that they play these things and guitar tablature, everything. I think if you've got a basic understanding of how music works, then you can pick these things up. Really.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, learning music has always been a case of if you can whistle to a tune, you can play that tune. If you can whistle to it and somebody recognizes it as that song, then
well, I think once learning the basics like chords and a few notes and stuff, and maybe the odd scale helps you be able to do that. Like hear something and how did they play that, and just be able to figure it out.
Yes, yeah. And a friend of mine says that he learned guitar and piano as a kid, so it was something that his parents moved him towards. But he said that the guitar doesn't make any sense to him in terms of music.
Right.
Yeah. Why go from an E string to an A string to a D?
That's true. I've had the same thoughts. It doesn't make any sense.
Whereas piano is like it's a sequence of notes, isn't it?
Yeah.
The guitar doesn't make any sense.
So what about piano? What about piano? Have you studied on that?
No, and I would say that I struggle on piano. If you listen to some of my piano covers, either my hand gets tired or I just can't maintain that rhythm. I tried challenging myself with Stevie Wonder's Superstition, which even though the notes aren't difficult, the way that he plays it, it's almost like he's playing a bongo.
It's all in the attitude, isn't it? The style.
Yes, it's in the groove, and you've got to get a feel for the way that the artist is. Sometimes when you do covers, you think you kind of got to step into the artist's shoes as well and think.
What are you going to do? Blindfold yourself.
Well, I was thinking, it's so interesting that you say that, Mark. It's like when you play Superstition, you think, I can understand how a blind person could play this.
Yeah.
It's not a case of sight. This is a case of feel, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you take away one sense, it changes the senses that are left.
Yes.
So
But
maybe he does obviously approach writing music in a completely different way.
possibly, yes, yes. But that's the other interesting thing about covers. It's you get a feel for not only the music, but where the artist is coming from with a particular piece of music.
Or maybe what they were going through when at that time when they wrote it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Trying to see if I can cite a particular example of something other than Stevie Wonder where I've covered. So the most recent guitar cover that I did was U2 Sunday Bloody Sunday. But listening to that, you think I grew up with U2, but I'd never really appreciated the song for. I mean, I understood the lyrics and what it's about, but I never appreciated how the music kind of also kind of communicates the idea of revolution. It's and the fact that it's quite a Celtic sounding song.
Yeah, true.
And that was something I only actually picked up on when I was playing it myself.
Yeah, until you actually analyze it and break it down into all its parts. Because I think until you do something like that, you just take it as a whole entity.
Yeah.
Are you more? Do you pay attention to music more or lyrics?
Certainly music. Lyrics not so much because lyrics. I think certainly when I was younger, I used to be interested in hearing what somebody had to say lyrically. Now I'm more interested in what are they saying through the instruments. Yeah. Unless to me the lyricist is on a next level of poetry almost. So I always cite David Byrne from Talking Heads as a major influence in terms of lyrics because the way that he writes lyrics is almost like it's to me it's a masterclass in the way that lyrics should be written for songs. He strays so far away from convention. He kind of like brings it all back, and sometimes I think that's if I was ever to write lyrics to a song, it'd be the way that he writes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's not the actual lyrics; it's the melodies that they chose to deliver those lyrics through, or the tempo, or the how many syllables they use, or just the way they say certain words makes it stand out. Whereas someone else could have sung it and it would have just passed you by.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, back when I was actually recording vocals and trying to put some lyrics into songs, I was thinking. You can't get too complicated with lyrics. You can't have anything that's more than 3 syllables because structurally it just doesn't fit with the music.
Yeah, it depends on the kind of music you're doing, but generally, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you don't want the lyrics to sort of take over or start doing too much.
Exactly.
They should just add a nice, succinct layer to it.
And I mean, like for sound purposes, it's always people say you shouldn't have too many plosives like P's and B's and T's and things like that, and it is something that you do think about when you're actually recording. You don't let it hinder your lyrics like to the extent like, well, I can't include any of that word in there.
It's like when you write music though, you try not to let too many things limit what you're doing. Try not to think I shouldn't do this. Just let it come out naturally and then work on it afterwards. Because you don't want to self censor yourself too much, otherwise you'll never reach your true self.
Yes, yeah. It's finding that balance between communicating the idea and remaining within something that sounds musical.
And half the battle for like some of what you're doing is getting what's in here to sound how in real life how it sounded up here. It's very difficult.
It's unusual as well. I mean, the lyric writing process it's not like writing a story. It's almost. And it's not like writing poetry either. It's something completely different, lyric writing.
So have you got many songs out there that have your lyrics in them?
I mean, there's a few on SoundCloud. I would say there's 5 songs with lyrics.
And with you singing them?
With me singing them, yes. Later on,
right.
I've got a lot of vocal processing.
Right, yeah. But it fits in with the sound.
It fits in with sound, yes, yeah. Electronic music, electronic voice, kind of.
So how did you approach writing the lyrics then?
So I mean, the first song I wrote with lyrics was possible. It's just the one that's being released, actually, A Simple Mind. So the beat that I took from that song was from A Simple Mind song, tweaked slightly, the bass line. But then whilst I was writing it, I was humming it into my head, A Simple Mind, A Simple Mind, A Simple Mind. And then I just built the song around that and thought I'd like to write a song about people regressing to a simpler way of thinking and living. You know,
It's a good concept.
yeah.
So how did it take you long?
People always ask me this, and I can never remember how long it took me to write a song. But I think with this one, it kind of just gelled together so quickly that I think the lyrics were written in a day.
That's good.
And recording took a bit longer. But again, sometimes I'll write music never with the intention of having lyrics on it. Sometimes I'll just write a piece of music and think, yeah, this could do with some lyrics.
Or a melody might come to you and you think, oh, this could have lyrics.
Yes, yeah.
So it's the actual process of like, I've got a melody, now I need some words.
Yes. Or
so
sometimes
have you ever had words already written that you then, this could go to a song? Or do you write words to music that's written?
I don't think that's ever been the case. I don't think the words have ever come first.
I'm the same. I've always written words to a song that's pretty much done.
Yes.
I find it easier. Unless, I mean, I had a notebook or something on my phone of like maybe an idea for that could be a song title or an album title. I've got a long list of those. And sometimes if a piece of music comes to me that sounds a certain way, I'll look through my list and go, which of these jumps out at me that sounds a bit like that? Because I find if I give it a title, that helps me with the theme for the lyrics. Otherwise, I can get a bit lost.
Yes, yeah. So the title guides the way that the lyrics.
It certainly helps. It certainly helps me get there quicker. Otherwise, I could go off on tangents and like, that's a good lyric, but then the next line doesn't make any sense. I have to kind of tie. It's something I've just learned as I've done it more and more that I've done it. I get a bit lost if there's no title. There is no right or wrong way to do it. Some people like filled in it. Thin Lizzy just would write like poetry, and then the band would come up with a song, and he'd go, "Oh, I've got these lyrics." They would go with that. They would just shoehorn these lyrics in. It just somehow it just works.
Fill in it. I mean, Jim Morrison here. I mean, the way he sings is like it's just poetry, but with musical background. Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that because there's so many approaches to it, and it's not just a case of verse, chorus. You don't have to do that either, really. As long as I think what people are looking for in a piece of music is to have like some sort of beginning, a build up, and some sense of closure. But even sometimes with songs, you don't get that either. It's like a song can be unfinished.
Yeah.
People will still listen to it.
Well, Paranoid, Black Sabbath has no chorus.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Ride the Lightning by Metallica has no chorus, but they're still the band's biggest song, some of the biggest songs, especially when they play live. Yeah. But it's like sometimes I've not realised that at the time that someone's mentioned it. I go, oh yeah, it doesn't, does it? So obviously it wasn't that big a deal because no one noticed.
No.
It's just a good song.
It's a good song, isn't it? Yeah. Yes.
So it's so there's no right or wrong way to do any of it. You've just got to experiment and find out what works best for you. Yeah. Like for me, lyric wise, I would come up with I would use the guitar. I would come up with a melody that would go with the music that I would think would work as a vocal melody. then I would add words to that melody. So that sounds like quite a convoluted way to do it, but it just worked for me.
But that makes sense. That is the way you.
Yeah. Whereas I know some people would just try and come up with lyrics off the top of their head. They would just write lines. Does that line work with there? Does that line work there? I just.
Yeah.
But
what are your feelings on complete originality? Like people always say that every form of music is in some sense plagiarized. In that, whatever tune you hum is never going to be 100% original. You will have heard fractions of that somewhere else.
I think getting to this point now, that's more true than it probably ever has been because there's so much. Like in the 1950s and 60s, everything was new.
Everything was new, yes, yeah.
So when you get to the point now, I mean, can you write a chord progression that has never been put in a song before?
There's a myriad of them, but only a certain number of them work, don't they? So
and like the fact that there's never been a new. What was the last big new genre of music that came through the world? So there was like grunge in '94. Then there was like new metal in the early 2000s, like Limp Bizkit and Korn and all them.
Yeah.
Then I suppose there's been like grime. Some of those.
Say grime. Yeah.
But there's never. How long ago was grime?
We're talking about 10 years ago.
Yeah, so there's nothing groundbreakingly new that's been totally unique that's ever come through. There's always people maybe taking two different ones and melding them together, or variations of things. But yeah,
fusions. Yes, yeah. But
it's a good question. It's a good question.
Yeah, I'm pleased to see like the 80s is making a comeback. So that recent song by The Weeknd.
Yeah.
Very 80s inspired. I love that.
But sometimes on I like Spotify the way it recommends songs based on what you've been listening to. Sometimes it's recommended a song and I've gone, this sounds like it was from the 80s, and I've listened to it and I've looked up the artist and they're current, they're now. So I quite like that. But yeah, maybe music, like a lot of things, is cyclical. So we'll go round and
yeah. I mean, I never really saw much of a revival of like the glam rock or prior to that, but in the 80s there's definitely a strong revival in terms of those kind of sounds. But that's why I find it really interesting now when I go on YouTube, how many of them are recommending analog synthesizers, which is a big thing back in the 80s.
Yeah.
So
it was in the 80s. It was like 90% of the things you'd hear would have this specific. I can't remember what it's called, but it was a synth that came out in like '84 or something that everybody used.
Yeah, the Yamaha DX7.
That's the one. Yeah. It was like the trade. That was the sound of the 80s.
That was the sound of the 80s. Yes, yeah.
But in your opinion, that's starting to make a bit of a comeback.
I mean, certainly in certain types of music, and I think even like the more common, the more popular artists, like they're incorporating that kind of analog sound back into their music.
It's interesting what gets picked up by the mainstream and what, like, at some point someone does something that the mainstream picks up on, so then everyone says this is we're allowed to do this now. Like, it seems like there's a small group of people making decisions that affect the like, I'll say, pop music.
I get that feeling. Yeah, I get the feeling that there's like an overarching body of like shadowy figures who think, right, what the world should be listening to today.
Who aren't musicians, for a start.
Oh, no,
businessmen and women.
But it's interesting when you listen to ads, like how many of them borrow from older. What do they call it when they like a reimagining of an older song?
Yeah,
so like a slower version of a.
Yeah, like a remix. Like there's been a few where major dance songs have used a clip of an old song that no one really knows, apart from the very catchy chorus.
That's right. So the one by Olive, "You're Not Alone," the reworking of that.
Yeah. Or some people will think that version was their song. They didn't realize it was really like 50 years ago.
Yes.
You actually get some bigger artists that a lot of their back catalogue is reissues of older material, especially when they first started. Anyway.
What do you mean? So,
like, an artist will become known for a song that wasn't actually theirs, like in their early days. Obviously, they might grow to write their own stuff, but like, I wish I could think of an example. There was a couple of songs that it was widely thought of that this song that they were known for was theirs. No one was picking up the fact that it was actually a cover. But so that goes back to your point about originality and coming up with new ideas. It's like it's becoming, the longer we go on, it's harder to come up with something that hasn't been done before or that can't be compared to something.
Yes. And I think certainly now there's no more major shift in the way that music is going to change. You know, back in the 70s, 80s, there was that major shift from acoustic to electronic. But I can't see how we can have another shift from electronic to something else.
No, not something new anyway.
Not something new. I just don't understand.
We could be wrong.
Could be wrong.
Unless there's like more developments with technology that makes different sounds that we've never heard before.
You do occasionally see things where you're thinking, is this the introduction of artificial intelligence to music? So
yeah,
it's a thing called. Somebody was telling me that there's a program or a piece of software where you type your lyrics and it'll sing it for you.
Right.
And I was thinking, okay, that sounds pretty similar to what these vocal synthesizers can do. But when are they going to get to the point where they can transplant some artist's voice box and make an instrument out of, say, I mean, let's pick somebody who's got a very distinctive voice.
Like Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. When can you have an instrument that...
I think there kind of already is something similar. I know there's definitely a YouTube channel that, I saw a video where a computer used algorithms of someone's back catalogue. Yeah. I don't know if it was I can't remember if it had vocals or not, but musically it sounded just like it made like a generic song based on what all their chord progressions were and what time signatures they use. So you had this one generic song. This sounds like this band, but it's not this band. You know what I mean? So AI is starting to creep into when will we see a song in the charts that wasn't written by a human being?
That's right. Yeah.
I can see it happening.
Yeah, machine-based song.
And then we'll have to go, well, we have to keep that separate. We have to have an AI chart and a human chart.
That's right, yeah.
Because the humans would be embarrassed, probably.
Robot top 40.
I could see that happening. But they've already done have you seen the thing where they can simulate someone's voice? So they can make Joe Rogan, the podcaster?
Yes.
He obviously, with people who talk a lot and there's a lot of their voice out there, this machine can take in their voice and you can make it say things. It sounds just like them. So there is a video out there of Joe Rogan, but it isn't him saying things that he never said, which is scary in its own right.
Yeah. But sometimes, I mean, I hold my hands up and say, people younger than me know computers way better than I am.
Yeah, they were brought up on it.
I hope to understand them, really. And when I'm following these YouTube videos, nearly everybody who's instructing me is 10, 15, 20 years younger than me, because they just know how these things work. And they know how a synthesizer works in terms of a soft synthesizer, or synthesizer in a computer.
Yeah, they know. They've just grown up with it. It's been there since they were born. Whereas I'm nearly 40, so I can remember a time when we didn't have any of this. The thought of going to a recording studio would be like, that's never going to happen. And now was obviously the equipment that we have at home, like the stuff that we can do at home. Imagine being locked down 25 years ago.
I was thinking that, actually. I was thinking now it's quite a nice time to be in quarantine. Really, you've got at your fingertips.
You have some time to do stuff.
Yeah, and I know you talk about entertainment. You can get everything delivered to your door now. And
also, it forces you to do those jobs that you've been putting off because you've been too busy. Unless you're a key worker like you, of course.
That's my excuse. I'm not going to pay key workers.
So who do you live with? Or are you on your own?
Currently I'm living on my own. So I'm hoping to move house at some stage when... I'm not using lockdown as something to stop me from moving house. Originally, I've been staying here because the show is filmed from this house.
I thought that when I saw the couch. I was like, that's the couch.
That's the couch.
So, yeah, but there's no... the house market does seem to be picking up again.
Yeah, I think now is a good time to buy.
Yeah.
Maybe not sell, but certainly buying and remortgaging.
How long have you been at that place for?
This place, about 7 years now.
Okay.
But I've moved back into this house. In total, I've owned this house for about 15 years.
Oh, I see. Right. When did you start Gogglebox then?
That was talking about 7, 8 years now.
So pretty much when you moved back into that house.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah. It's that room fits that you're setting perfectly because it's a very wide room.
Yes.
With because the cameras can get the full angle of you all in. Are you guys always that funny? Do you always have that camaraderie even when you're not doing Gogglebox? You're just laughing and joking all the time.
Yeah, we've just got this easy nature between us. Nothing is I would say, something's not taboo, but we just got that. We've got a very particular sense of humour that we call Siddiqui sense of humour, which is kind of that dry kind of wit.
Yeah.
And it's come from TV itself, really. It's interesting that now people are appreciating our humour on TV when that humour has actually been borrowed from TV.
Yeah.
So watching sitcoms and things like that.
I often thought that, like, as a on paper concept, Gogglebox sounds terrible until you actually watch it, and then you just go, you just can't stop watching it because it's just funny. It's
one of these things that it shouldn't work, but it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's credit to the people that made it. They picked the right people to do it. There are, I would say that there are certain people who want to get on the show that probably wouldn't be what the show is known for. You know.
I think you can tell when it's forced or when it's been manufactured, as opposed to when people just have natural chemistry and they always have had.
Yeah,
which is now it's being filmed.
Yeah.
So,
and we were kind of worried that when Dad withdrew from it last year because of the whole situation, that me and Bass would find it difficult to keep the momentum going. But we still managed to, and it just goes to show that it's not us. It's just it's a Siddiqui family. You can transfer any one of us with another member, and we'd be the same.
You just bounce back and forth off each other, don't you? Yeah. So did you? What made you decide to go for it in the first place?
To be on
Gogglebox at all?
So initially, back when it was a fledgling idea, they were approaching people who who were contributing to the show knew, so friends of friends, friends of family, and Bassett knew somebody who became, I think, one of the researchers on the show, and she approached him and she said, "I remember you when I used to work with you, that you were quite funny, and with you and your brother, you want to audition for this TV show that they're putting together." So we said, yeah, we'll agree to that. So there was 4 of us at the time. There was Raza as well, who occasionally pops in now. But
yeah. Did you have to convince your dad? Did he take much convincing?
Not hardly. None of us, to be honest. And we did a bit of an audition where they came around and they said, yeah, we would like you on the show. And then they just kept on calling us back series after series.
Something I always wondered, how much TV do you actually have to watch?
All in all, so we shoot one day in the week, so talking about 6-7 hours of telly.
So you just spend a day just watching stuff, and then that's it. Oh, that's not too bad. And do you get to? They just tell you what to watch?
Yeah, they'll come with programs, but that's only so they can marry up with what all the family.
Yeah.
The way the show is put together, it's like a kind of like running commentary from across the
different people's perspectives. Yeah. That's the part that I like. Like sometimes you guys will say something, react in a certain way, and somebody else will react in a completely different way.
Yes.
Which reflects reality. I think that's the overall appeal of the show, is the reality of it, and it's real. And
the programs they have to pick have to be either current or popular or something that we watch. I mean, if it was up to me, it'd just be me commenting on stuff that's on ITV4. Who really watches that anymore? So.
No, but I can see that show going on for a long, long time, because people leave, new people come in. It just keeps it fresh all the time. There's never going to be an end. You're never going to run out of things to talk about.
Well, whilst TV is carrying on, I think the show will. It's become quite a staple part of TV.
Of course, yeah, absolutely, yeah. What was the reaction like after, like I said? Do you remember what happened after the first episode went out?
I remember we all sat together watching it, and it was really weird watching yourselves on TV, especially with that show, because it's not like the credits roll and their face is there. It's almost like there's a sudden jump cut and then your face is on TV.
Yeah.
It's quite surprising.
Oh, we're actually quite funny.
Yeah, sometimes you do watch it back and you think, yeah, that's that.
Did you get much reaction on the street, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think it took a while for a buzz to generate, but once it did, people won't leave.
You still get that now?
Not so much now, but I think because the show has become such a embedded now, and it's just part of telly. I think when people were latching onto it and they were realizing what it was and who these people were, I think the participants' popularity soared. I mean, you only have to look at Scarlett Moffat, who went on to other things, and I think that is because at that time it was such a popular show, and it still is, and we still get the occasional, "Oh, you're that guy at the telly." But 100, I would say 100% of the time, everybody's got something positive to say about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't see what bad you would have to say about it.
No, but I mean, that's always a worry that when you're on TV, there might be somebody who doesn't like what you say. But so far, touch wood, everybody's had something nice to say about it.
Have you got a favourite other people on the show who you like to watch whenever you do watch it?
When I do watch it, I like Mary and Giles.
Yeah, yeah, they are funny. A very unique relationship, isn't it?
Unique. I like unique. Yes.
Yeah. No, they're all good. They all bring something to the show in a different way. But so going back to your music, then, do you think we'll see you doing something? I don't. Do you think actual music video for something that you would put out?
Well, I like to think about these things in like one step at a time. Yeah. I don't know if I'd be in it, but I would like to have some sort of creative control behind attaching an image to some of my.
Just because, especially with the music that hasn't got any words, the visuals can obviously aid with that a lot, and it gets very popular on like YouTube and online and stuff like that.
Yeah. But like with everything, Mark, I always have a go at something.
Yeah.
Or something. So I mean, I put a song on SoundCloud called Existence, which is complete departure to what I do. It was more orchestral, but then I made that accompanying a video. I actually wrote that song in mind with a strong visual image in my head.
Right.
At the moment, it's like there's nothing that I won't try in terms of music. Because at the moment, I think I'm still seeing it as an interest, as a hobby.
Right.
And if somebody's made from it's. I mean, that'd be lovely. But I just love that creative process, to be honest.
Well, I think music often does evoke images as well as sounds to your mind. Especially when you listen to your favorite music. Obviously, we don't do it as much these days, but I'm sure you remember listening to an album like with headphones on and not doing anything else.
Yeah.
I don't think many people do that these days.
Probably
it
not,
seems to be something that they do in the background.
Yeah, it's music on the go now, isn't it?
Yeah, like and artists are reflecting that by they don't really put out full albums anymore. They maybe put a few songs or just a song here and there.
Yes.
Because they know people aren't consuming it that way anymore.
This is the other thing. How you got to look at how people are consuming music, and as disheartening as it is, like you said, it's no longer the time of concept albums and that kind of stuff anymore. People will just listen to one song, and they probably won't listen to that from start to finish. It'll probably be that hook or that main riff, or
people, especially younger people, they just want to pick certain tracks, and sometimes they'll play one track and they'll just move on to another artist. They don't pay it. They don't even think who was that or look them up. They'll just go to the next song.
Yeah.
So
and that's why I like doing the covers as well, because it's not my music that I'm putting out there. It's somebody else's, and if that gives somebody a chance to listen to something and think, oh, I would like to listen to that how it originally sounded.
Yeah.
And steer people's back onto the good music.
I know what you mean. It's like Guitar Hero, the game that introduced a whole new younger generation of people to bigger artists, older artists, like especially the rock artists like AC/DC, Metallica, Iron Maiden. They were all on there, but like the younger generation hadn't really experienced them. But this was perfect.
And it's weird as well because the younger generation will be more open to music in a way that the older generation won't be. So if I hear something now that's considered popular, I listen to that and think that's tripe. Whereas young people would listen to something like Queen or AC/DC or Guns N' Roses and think that's okay.
Yeah.
There's a kind of selectivity that kind of diminishes as you grow older in terms of music.
Yeah. As you get older, it's harder to, I don't know, the temptation is to stick with what you grew up with, and you take in less of what's coming in now.
Yeah.
But you try to be as open-minded. I mean, I have to say, in Spotify's defense for streaming, it is great for introducing me to new stuff, because it recommends stuff that is similar to what you listen to, but it also recommends stuff that you might not have heard of that you like, that's current.
Yes.
And I think that's the streaming services have a huge responsibility to keep that happening. Don't just go with what's current and what's happening now. Go with what happened years ago that they might never, has references to what they listen to now. And there's all the music platforms have some sort of service that does that now. So me as an older person will get exposed to new stuff, and someone who's only like young now listening to current stuff will get exposed to older stuff. So I think that's very important.
That's very important. Yeah.
And
I
AC/DC were a band that resisted being on all media, all online streaming services for years. And then I think someone convinced them that, well, if you're not there, you will never get picked up by the next generation because they're not going to get CDs, they're not going to get vinyl. It's just not going to happen. So you have to be on this. So eventually, they went on all streaming services, and that's what happened. They've whole new generation of fans.
Yeah. They succumbed to the pressures of their music completely being lost.
But you can't argue with the way it's going. You just have to adapt. Otherwise, you'll be removed. You'll be overlooked.
You absolutely do. And me, like, to me, going on Instagram was a big thing.
All right.
I always thought the last place that my music would be heard and liked would be on Instagram.
And it turns out that's one of the most.
That is the most, honestly, Mark. To me, I consider Instagram now to be my output for music.
Your main.
I know people say you're a weirdo because it's not Spotify. People can't stream your music, and I'm like, well, at this moment in time, I don't care about that. I just care that I'm putting music out there and people are listening to it.
It's visual. Instagram is visual. It's a visual and audio, I guess. But you put your clips out of your playing and stuff. But you put pictures up and you put comments, and people love that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of musicians on there.
Absolutely. And in lockdown, they've all been doing live performances. I saw one artist put, it was like, sod this lockdown, I'm going on tour. Tonight I'm playing the bathroom, tomorrow I'm playing the kitchen. I thought that was good.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting to see musicians have had to sort of think outside the box. How do they keep current? How do they connect with their fans where they can't actually...
Yes.
And obviously, for the bigger artists, touring is how they make their money. So now they've got to do things. Obviously, you have the Patreon accounts where people can pay you money to get. They can pay you a monthly fee, and you'll give them exclusive content and stuff like that. But generally, they've just had to be more open and honest with their fans and just be real.
Yeah.
Which I think can only be a good thing.
That can only be a good thing. Yes. Yeah.
And you see them go. You see them going live all the time. Like now, they never used to. And I think things like that will stay after we get out of this situation. I think artists have realised the value in it.
Yeah, I mean, even now, even if Boris Johnson and people say, well, Wembley Stadium can be reopened to concerts. If bands, Rolling Stones being an example, who seem to keep on touring, but if they can do it from the comfort of their mansions, then why not? You know,
the Zimmer Frame tour.
The Zimmer Frame tours.
I mean, what are they all 70 now?
I don't know what they are.
They're there or thereabouts. It is incredible that they're still going. I
just got images of Keith Richards on his stair lifts because playing guitar is coming down the stairs.
Like they must be the oldest, longest running band, I would say. They're still able to actually. I don't think they can't, but they would do a live show if they could. Because do you think artists have as long a career as they used to? It seems like it's a lot bit more cutthroat and short-lived these days.
Yeah, I think the days of the established artists is gone, really. I can't even imagine that the artists that are current today being recognised 10 years. I mean, some do. Some still have that kind of that staying power, don't they? People still listen to them, and I'm not talking about the older generation. I'm still talking about in terms of music, pretty recent. I mean, like talking about Beyonce, and I don't know if she actually releases anything, but these people are still recognised as artists. And who's to say? Maybe a handful of them will still be recognised.
I'm sure they will, but it just seems like all the bands now who could fill a stadium, when they're gone, will there be anybody else who could do it? Who started 10 years ago, or even who started now?
Yes, yeah.
It's a different. If you think about all the bands who can play stadiums now, most of them became successful in a way that doesn't exist anymore. Album sales.
That's true. Yes, no stadium from streaming alone, were they?
No. It could happen, but it just doesn't seem that plausible.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is, in terms of the kind of performances, well, people expect a lot more from live performances, don't they?
Yeah, especially with the prices that they have to pay.
That's right. Yeah.
I think that's the prices that we pay now. I mean, some of the bigger artists, like 100 quid a ticket, that is probably one of the effects of album sales going out the window. They've had to recoup that revenue from somewhere, and live is the only place left.
Yes.
So
But
you're yet to go down that road.
it often makes me think, like, okay, so say if I had this interest back when you could only do it through recording demos on cassettes and getting albums and CDs put together, would I have still done it then?
Yeah.
Has the situation that stopped me from becoming as big as I could 30 years ago also made it easy for me to do what I'm doing and still getting a bit of recognition for it?
Yeah, that's interesting because back then there wasn't the opportunity to, like, you couldn't record a demo at home like you can now to the quality that you can, but also there wasn't many people doing it back then, so it seemed like an impossible thing to do. Like only a very select few would get to do that, but it's now anybody can do it.
Yeah.
So it's a
and it often be the case that because it was so selective, you knew that what was getting out there was the best that you could possibly hear. You know?
Yes, that's true. And just things like getting into a recording studio would cost a fortune. It still is expensive, but it's a lot more doable than it used to be.
Yes.
And I don't think you couldn't just go and hire a studio 30 years ago. You had to have a reason to be there. Someone would have to allow you to be there.
That's, yeah.
Whereas now, if you've got the money, you can go in.
Yeah.
But have you seen the documentary Sound City by Dave Grohl?
No.
Do you know of Sound City, the studio?
Yes.
I suggest you watch that. Dave Grohl. Yeah. Are you aware of the Neve console? It was a console that so many of his famous albums have been recorded, like Nirvana's Nevermind was recorded on it. Mixing console. This specific one, there was only a handful, and this was the only one that was custom made for Sound City. So it has a certain specific sound. Obviously, those rooms.
Yeah.
And those rooms don't look much, but for some reason, certain bands go in there, and it just produces this amazing sound. So Dave Grohl has that console at his house, his home studio now.
Right.
So that was the one that they recorded Nevermind on. But the documentary is the whole history of the studio and how it several times nearly went out of business. All the artists that recorded there, I recommend you watch it. I think it's on Netflix.
Definitely.
Or it might be on Amazon Prime.
Music documentaries. And at the moment, I'm reading Michael Jackson's autobiography.
Did he actually do an autobiography himself?
It's
a biography.
Biography, sorry, yes.
Who's it written by?
A guy called J. Randy Taraborelli.
Okay, yeah.
He was a guy who followed him around closely around the time. But
how far through are you?
about 3/4 of the way through. So just after he released the Bad album, to disappointing 6 million sales. But he was comparing that to Thriller, you see, which sold like astronomical amounts.
He was never going to repeat that, was he?
He was never, no.
Disappointing 6 million.
6 million. But it's so weird reading something like this, and I mean, my girlfriend lent me this because she's a big Michael Jackson fan, but it's interesting reading it as somebody who makes music.
Right.
Like how people are willing to bend over backwards for that hint of genius, you know?
Yeah.
Because people always describe that term genius to music makers, and I've never understood why that is the case. Why do people call people like Michael Jackson, Bob Dylan, why do they call them geniuses? It is because their way of thinking is so honed in, unique, but unique to the effect that the end product is incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's undeniable.
Yes.
So even with all the stuff that he had going on in his personal life, I try and separate the music from all that. Because if you do that all the time, you won't listen to half the stuff that's out there.
Yeah.
Michael Jackson was such a unique. I mean, I saw a documentary. I can't remember which one it was years ago, where one of the sound engineers was talking about when he was writing like Billie Jean and stuff like that. When they were listening to like a mix back of it, he had to leave the room to dance because he was just he was just feeling it so much he had to go out and dance.
Right.
I was like,
You mentioned-
imagine being that into it.
Yeah. He had an appreciation for music in a way that just transcended everybody.
Like, and it was reflected. It was in the end, it was reflected by the whole world. But he couldn't.
Yes.
He couldn't. His own music. He couldn't listen to it without having to dance to it. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'd love for that to be able to. I mean, sometimes I do make something, and I'm thinking, I've really hit this the nail on the head with this, and you probably get the same. Like you play something, you think, that is, I'm quite proud of myself for doing that. You know.
Yeah, I find that with lyrics quite a lot, but sometimes, usually, it's the band. When you get the band in, and you play something, you go, "Whoa, that was awesome!"
Yeah.
I'm glad we used to record everything because, like, did we get that?
That's brilliant.
Sometimes,
That's that kind of cohesion in it, where
yeah,
just
it certainly helps the more you've been together with a certain collection of people. Things like that happen more often. But yeah, that's why I've never done anything solo wise like you are doing. Never done anything like that. That would personally scare me.
Really?
Yeah, but going on stage with three other people, no problem.
Yes. It might come to the point where I go onto stage and think, shit, I need 3 other people. I wish I wasn't by myself.
Well, you've got to learn the hard way. You'll find out either way, won't you?
That's true.
But things like doing the open mic nights, like you were saying, that is the perfect.
Yeah.
It's the only way to do it. Just get out there, see how it feels, and go from there.
No other way you can do that. There is no other way of recreating that live environment other than going out there.
Yeah, it's a very unique experience.
Yeah.
I mean, because the writing of the music is different because you're aided by computers and all sorts of stuff. But all leads to that moment when you're on stage. It's just you and your instrument. You've just got to do it.
Yes.
It's all about confidence and being able to focus.
And I think with I mean, these open mic nights, they expect maybe the odd slip up or as long as it doesn't explain the entire song. I think I sometimes think a occasional mistake is it shows that you're human as well. And with electronic music as well, sometimes it's difficult to get across that feel that because a lot of people with electronic music will say you're not doing anything, do you? The computer is doing it all for you. But I tell you what, making that kind of music is every bit as hard as writing something on a guitar.
Because you're multitasking.
You're multitasking as well. And if you want to achieve a level of, what's the word? That kind of swing or that kind of humanness in electronic music, you try telling the computer to do that, it's virtually impossible.
It's not just about making mistakes, it's how you deal with making mistakes. Because even the biggest artists in the world, they all make mistakes, but quite often you don't even notice because they just, I played the wrong note, or singer forgets a word.
They'll gloss over it, or sometimes sometimes a mistake will become an integral part of the song.
Yeah.
Lucky, happy mistake. But I for anybody that says that making music with synthesizers is not a real way of making music, it's every bit as real, honestly.
Well, they're obviously the people who've never tried it.
There's people that either never tried it or they've tried it, but I haven't really gone into the depths of synthesizers.
Yeah.
Because at the moment I'm also studying some tutorials on how some of these synthesizers actually work.
Right.
Because it's nice sometimes to have a piece of kit.
That's the scientist in you that coming through there.
My family's like that. My dad's like that as well. He's an engineer, so he's always like taking things apart and rebuilding them. It's just nice sometimes to have. You feel like you've got more control over an instrument if you know.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Or anything. It's like it's broken. I'm not just going to fix it. I'm going to take it completely apart and see how it works.
And with a computer, when you can do that, because you just close the program if you probably do. I would never do that with a real machine, but with a soft synth you can do that. And it's sometimes as well when you're covering bands, especially like Depeche Mode or that kind of
industrial
sound.
or like 9 Inch Nails or something like that. Trent Reznor.
Yeah, Trent Reznor. Or you think, okay, I could get exactly that same synthesizer that they got, but I'm sure I've heard this similar on one of the synthesizers I've got. So what do I need to tweak? What do I need to modulate to make it sound fresh mode, you know?
But so have you acquired quite a collection of equipment now then?
You know what? In terms of equipment, physical equipment, I haven't got much. It's all It's all on the computer.
Yeah.
The only actual hardware I've got is my laptop, MIDI keyboard, a regular keyboard, guitar, and I've actually got a synthesizer that I got for my 30th birthday. But again, I only use that to trigger the computer notes as a MIDI instrument.
Yeah.
And then like a mic and an interface. So equipment-wise, I don't really carry around too much. On Instagram, you see these people with banks of synthesizers.
They're just showing off.
They're showing off, and sometimes you'll be sitting there in anticipation, right, thinking,
Like drummers who have like 40,000 cymbals and toms. They're never going to use them all. It's just for show.
you can't reach them, can you?
No, if you want to use the ones back here, you have to like drum like this.
Yeah.
Well, have you... Go on.
I have the mindset, minimal equipment, and just get the most that you can out of it.
Well, especially if it's just you. There's only so much you can use at any one time.
Yeah. Really squeeze everything completely for what you can do.
Have you thought about what your setup would be if you did a live show?
Yeah, it will just be laptop and a MIDI keyboard.
Boom. Plugged into the house PA or whatever.
Oh, yeah. That's all I need.
Yeah. Simple
To recreate that sound exactly in my living room through my speakers. That's all I need. I don't need anything else.
That's good.
If I was to decide at some point to sing, I'd take my mic and USB interface with me or guitar with me.
Yeah.
But they're only minor attachments. I would never need anything more than that.
So would you be a performer who would play a song and then talk to the audience, or would you just play a set and just keep going?
Maybe a bit of introduction as to this, right, the next song is blah, blah, blah. And then it's a song. Because the way I've done the set for the open mic night, it's a continuous 15 minutes. No, right. There's no point.
Because the thing you're going to face when you first start is people will be coming for the Gogglebox aspect. So
people are there for the music, and if you're there, you're there.
That's good. I know a lot of comedians have had that if they've been in something before. They were doing comedy, but they were in a film or something that made them famous. So then people just came. If that was film, was not related to do with comedy, so people have come for that. Yeah. Like hugely disappointed, but it's like, well, what did you expect?
I do think that about actors, especially who pursue music, because Jeff Goldblum, he's a jazz pianist as well, isn't he?
Yeah.
What kind of response he gets when people there to listen to him play the piano, or just to ask him about?
I don't want to say some Jurassic Park lines. But yeah, it's strange what people get associated with, rather than like they can become hugely famous for one thing, but that's like the thing that they did once, when actually they've done this whole other thing their entire life. I suppose it's like you with Gogglebox, but you've always done music.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, it's not it's not something that I've put decades and decades of hard work into, but it is something that I would like to be recognised more and more for.
Yeah.
As time goes on,
I think you're going about it in the right way, like doing the Instagram stuff like that, putting stuff on YouTube. That's the way forward in today's.
And a lot of my Instagram followers they've got no idea what Gogglebox is now, because a lot of them
that works abroad. For doing that works to your advantage then, because they are two completely different things. So
they do completely different things. Yes.
Oh well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
I feel like we could just talk all day.
Yeah, with music, I could talk to you for the best part.
We'll do it again. I mean, usually I have a studio, but obviously with lockdown, I can't get to the studio. Yeah. So
it would be nice.
If you ever feel like coming to Cumbria for a weekend or whatever, there's always a seat in my studio for you. And nice. the studio where I'm about to go has a place where you can perform music. So
that'd be brilliant. I was half in mind just to play your clips of stuff today, but I thought it wouldn't do it justice just to have it, because it'll only become.
I'll put links in the show notes so people will be able to go to. I'll put a link to all your stuff in the show notes of the podcast, and on YouTube. So, is Gogglebox is finished for now, though, isn't it? It's not on now.
Yeah, we're on summer break at the moment.
Yeah, so you're back towards the end of the year.
Early September.
Oh, cool. Not long then.
Not long.
Cool.
That'll run up until Christmas.
Great.
Yeah.
So hopefully we might be getting back to some sort of normality by then.
Yeah, who's to say? I mean, the rules keep on changing every day. I mean, parts of the country are going back into some form of lockdown.
Yeah. Like Manchester at the moment, isn't it? Lancaster and Manchester.
Yeah.
It could happen anywhere, anytime.
It could. And knowing a bit about how these things are transmitted, what concerns me is that a lot of the population still haven't had this thing yet. So there's still what we call a naive population that could still get it.
Yeah. At the beginning they were all talking about we need herd immunity.
That's when I heard that, a part of me did think there is some sense in that, but you couldn't do it without it being deeply immoral, really. Though.
No, it's not like getting two kids together. Let's have a chickenpox party for our kids. That's all. Let them all get it. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out because we don't really know. Things change all the time, so fast.
But as far as you're concerned, I mean, like, people could still do. You could still have somebody in your studio.
Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We'll still be able to social distance and everything will be cleaned and everything. But yeah, it's going to be possible. But I just, I specifically didn't used to do these because I didn't enjoy them as much. But now that I've got the setup perfect, I can do these just as well. But you can never really beat in-person conversation, as I'm sure you know.
That's right. That's right.
Like, I don't think you and your dad and your brothers would be as funny over Zoom as you are in the same room.
Completely, yeah.
Because there's a timing thing as well. There's always a little bit of a delay when you're doing remotely.
There's always a delay, yes, yeah. And it's just, sometimes you need to see somebody. And I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not like tactile, you don't touch them, you just want to see a physical presence.
Yes, yeah. It does make a difference. Yeah.
But I'm not used to this. Bass is completely used to this because he does a lot of his teaching and stuff.
Yes. Yeah. I've got obviously of the website. I've got the website up here. It's a very good website you guys have got, by the way.
The Siddiqui website, yeah. That's Bass. He's completely in charge of building that and updating it.
It's great because anyone who's looking up any of you guys, it's all on there.
It's all on there, isn't it?
And at one point, you were doing a podcast for quite a while.
Yeah, the Siddiqui Ramblings podcast, that kind of died a death.
I didn't know about that until I was just doing research for this. I've subscribed to it. I've listened to a few episodes. It was great.
Yeah. We used to talk about anything and everything for the best. It went on for a good year, I think.
It was more than that. It was like over 2 years.
Yeah, and it culminated in a live performance.
All right.
Yeah, so a live podcast.
Do you think you'd ever do that again?
Hopefully, yeah. I don't want to say that's it for the Siddiqui Ramblings. And it wasn't the coronavirus that stopped us from doing that. We actually stopped doing that a while before.
Well, you do have to dedicate some time to doing it with everything else you've got going on, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. And with ours, we found that we had to do a bit of research as to what we were going to talk about. Otherwise, there'd be a lot of dead space. Yeah, a lot of editing. It sounds weird because people always say, well, you guys always seem to be able to talk to each other about anything. But I think with the podcast, you kind of have to have a bit of structure as to way.
Well, even with Gogglebox, you're always talking about something that you're watching all together. Yeah. There's a structure to that. So, yeah, in a podcast, I mean, I'm assuming after a while you have enough listeners where you could ask them. Part of the show could be get them to writing questions or writing stories and stuff like that. Do you know Chris Ramsey and Rosie Ramsey, Shag Married Annoyed, their podcast? Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. Listened to it.
That's very popular, and what they end the show is just stories from listeners, from the sublime to the ridiculous, and it's never ending source of things to talk about.
Yeah.
So, when I discovered that I think your last episode was a year ago or 2 years ago. I think it was
the last episode would have been not. I think it was December
June.
Last year, the year before.
I'll tell you now.
That would have been the live one. We could have done one after that actually.
It was 1 year ago. The last one that went out was on the 16th of June 2019. That was Why DIY is Awesome.
Yeah, hopefully we'll start doing that again.
Because that worked. Just like it was a similar concept to Gogglebox, but it just you guys in a room talking about stuff. There's always you always find some funny in there.
Always some funny. Always laughs to be had.
Of course. Oh, well, Umar, thanks again for doing this. I really appreciate your time.
Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank